I had it all: a loving husband, security, a perfect life. Then he showed up, my brother in law, my husband's brother. He was sexy, attractive, and I simply couldn't resist. You'll see how a single desire can change everything, and why you won't want to miss this story. Want to discover how a single impulse can destroy everything? Stay with me until the end. Sign up so you don't miss a single detail of the story.
What if the love of your life was the biggest mistake you could ever make? The question lingered in Cameral's mind as she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of her luxurious apartment, city lights flickering like distant promises. This was not just a love story. It was passion, betrayal, and a secret that could ruin everything. Tom, her devoted and kind-hearted husband, been everything she ever wanted: gentle, caring, and endlessly patient. Yet lurking in the shadows of family dinners and business meetings was Brady, Tom's brother, dangerous and magnetic, whose charm stirred something forbidden in her that she never knew existed. Cameral had always been aware of her own desires, the restless hunger for something more, and Brady sensed and knew exactly how to awaken it. It started subtly, almost unnoticed. At a family gathering, Brady's gaze lingered too long, a teasing smile playing at the corner of his lips, while Tom laughed at her side, oblivious to the storm brewing. Every accidental touch, every fleeting glance ignited attention she could no longer deny. In those moments, the apartment felt smaller, the air heavier, as though their secret desires were pressing against the walls. Cameral's mind raced. She had promised herself fidelity, yet every time Brady spoke her name, it felt like a whisper from a forbidden future. The thrill of danger called to her, and she found herself walking closer to the edge of temptation with each passing day. Even in the boardroom, where the mafia business of the family required discipline and respect, Brady's influence was undeniable. Tom, respected but gentle, managed negotiations with careful precision. Yet Brady's aura of power drew Cameral in, making her pulse quicken at every encounter. Business lunches became arenas of silent tension, where smiles and polite words hid the electricity between them. Cameral struggled to reconcile her growing attraction with the loyalty she felt toward Tom. Could she truly resist, or was she destined to surrender to the dangerous allure of Brady's world, where desire ruled over reason? The conflict deepened during a quiet dinner at our private estate. Tom's eyes, full of warmth and trust, met hers across the table, and Cameral felt the pang of guilt that twisted in her chest. Brady leaned closer under the guise of conversation, brushing her hand just enough to send shivers up her spine. The dichotomy of love and lust, devotion and temptation carved a sharp line through her heart. She could almost hear the city outside whispering the consequences of a single choice, a choice that could shatter everything. And yet the pull was irresistible. Passion and danger interwove, making every stolen moment feel inevitable. By the end of the evening, Cameron found herself alone in the garden, the cool night air doing nothing to calm the fire inside her. She knew the path she was walking was perilous, that one misstep could ruin her marriage, fracture a family, and ignite a war in the shadows of the mafia world they all inhabited. But desire had a voice louder than reason, and Brady's presence lingered in her thoughts like a song she could not stop humming. What would she choose? Safety with a man who loved her unconditionally, or the forbidden thrill that beckoned with every glance from the brother she was never supposed to want? The night ended with her heart pounding and a dangerous curiosity about what the next encounter might bring, and you won't want to miss.
Camelot couldn't stop thinking about the stolen moments with Brady, even as she ate breakfast with Tom, whose smile was warmer than the morning sun. The contrast between them was unbearable. Tom's constant affection versus Brady's unpredictable intensity. Every laugh, every casual touch from Tom reminded her of what she might lose. But every look from Brady promised something thrilling, dangerous, and irresistible. The family estate, with its sprawling gardens and elegant salons, became the stage for silent games of desire, each encounter more intense than the last. She wondered if she was betraying herself more than Tom, losing control of her own heart. The next business meeting brought the tension to a head. Brady leaned closer, whispering suggestions that carried hidden meanings, and Camelot felt a blush she couldn't hide. Tom, focused on contracts and negotiations, never suspected the storm brewing inches away. Camelot's internal struggle intensified. How could she remain loyal when temptation walked so boldly in the same room? The whispers of desire were intoxicating, mingling with the ambient hum of the city outside, and she began to yearn for the moment she promised herself she would resist. The line between right and wrong blurred with every heartbeat. A private dinner with the two brothers further intensified the conflict. Candlelight danced across Brady's confident face, and Camelot found herself laughing at jokes she normally wouldn't. Tom's gentle words of comfort, the way he reached out to her, only intensified her yearning for the forbidden. Each brother represented a world she could inhabit, one safe, predictable, and loving, the other wild, dangerous, and overwhelming. Her mind swirled with questions she dared not speak aloud. Could a single choice truly change everything? Would passion justify betrayal, or would it destroy everything she loved? That night, alone in her room, Camelot replayed every interaction in her mind. The tension with Brady was no longer subtle. It pulsed through her like electricity. She knew their next encounter could take her past the point of no return. The guilt she felt for even thinking about him consumed her, but it was overpowered by the thrill of the forbidden. Tom's unwavering love was like a beacon in a stormy sea, but the allure of danger called her louder. She realized the path she was on might not just end in heartbreak. It might unravel every thread of her carefully constructed life. The night ended with a question hanging in the air, dense and inevitable. Would she be able to resist? Or would she surrender completely to the world of passion and danger that awaited her? The next chapter promises to take you deeper into the forbidden. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. You won't want to miss a single moment.
The following evening brought another family gathering, and with it, the weight of temptation pressed harder against Cameral's resolve. Tom, ever the attentive husband, introduced her proudly to new business associates, his hand resting gently on hers as if to anchor her in his love. Yet her eyes drifted, inevitably, to Brady, who carried himself with the arrogance of a man who knew the effect he had on her. The way he held her gaze across the table made her heart race, a silent challenge that dared her to break every promise she had ever made. When the meal ended and conversation spilled into the garden, Brady found his moment. He leaned against the stone railing, waiting as though he knew she would come. Cameral hesitated, torn between guilt and desire, but her steps betrayed her, carrying her closer to him. The air between them was electric, heavy with words left unsaid. He smirked, his voice low and teasing, as he murmured, "You don't belong at his side. You belong here." Her pulse quickened, the forbidden words sinking deep into her soul. She wanted to deny him, to walk away, but the fire inside her refused to be extinguished. Tom's laughter echoed from inside, a sound so pure it nearly shattered her courage. For a fleeting second, Cameral thought about running back to him, burying her guilt beneath the comfort of his unwavering love. But when Brady's hand brushed hers, the world blurred. Every rule, every boundary dissolved into the night air. In that instant, Cameral felt herself slipping further, dangerously close to a betrayal she could never undo. The shadows of the mafia world seemed to close in, binding her not only to Tom's family, but also to the dangerous desire burning inside her. As the night deepened, Cameral returned to Tom's side, her smile practiced and her heart in chaos. He kissed her forehead gently, oblivious to the storm raging within her. She clung to his arm, hoping his warmth could silence the memory of Brady's touch. But the truth was undeniable. Her loyalty was fractured, and she was no longer the woman she had been when she married Tom. The forbidden had already taken root in her heart, and no amount of love could erase it. The more she fought it,
the stronger it became, as though fate itself was pulling her toward destruction. Camera lay awake long after Tom had drifted to sleep, the silence of the night mocking her restlessness. She knew the path ahead was filled with danger, not just for her heart, but for the fragile balance of the family itself. With every heartbeat, she wondered if tomorrow would be the day she surrendered completely to Brady, or if she could somehow escape the fire that threatened to consume her. But deep down, she already knew the truth. Passion had a way of demanding payment, and she was about to pay the price. And what happens next will take this forbidden story to a place you cannot look away from.
The following days were heavy with silence and stolen glances. Cameron tried to busy herself with family matters, helping Tom with endless arrangements that came with being tied to a powerful name. Yet every time Brady entered the room, her body betrayed her. His presence was like a storm lingering on the horizon, dangerous, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. She avoided his eyes, but she could still feel him watching, always watching. One evening, Tom was called away for business, leaving Cameron alone at the estate. The house felt too big, too empty, and every creak in the silence reminded her of the risks she was taking by simply existing under the same roof as Brady. When the door opened and his voice filled the hall, her heart nearly stopped. He wasn't supposed to be there. Yet there he was, leaning in the doorway, his gaze burning into hers like a confession. "You can keep running from me," Brady said softly, stepping closer, "but it won't change what's already inside you." His words wrapped around her like chains. Cameron shook her head, trembling, torn between loyalty and desire. She whispered, almost pleading, "This is wrong. I can't do this to Tom." But her voice lacked conviction, and Brady caught it instantly. With a half smile, he replied, "Then why haven't you walked away?" Her answer never came. Instead, silence spoke louder than words. Cameron stood frozen, her back against the wall, her breath shallow as Brady's hand lifted gently to her cheek. The moment was fragile, suspended between sin and salvation. She could feel the ground slipping beneath her feet, pulling her into a decision she would never be able to take back. And just before the kiss that could ruin everything, Tom's voice echoed from outside the house. He had returned earlier than expected. Cameron stumbled back, panic flooding her chest, her secret nearly exposed in a heartbeat. As Tom entered, smiling and unaware, Cameron's entire body trembled with the weight of her choices. She clung to him as though his embrace could erase what had just happened, but the truth was undeniable. The line had already been crossed. The betrayal hadn't yet unfolded, but the hunger inside her had already chosen its path. And the deeper she went, the harder it would be to escape. What comes next will push Cameron into a place where love, loyalty, and obsession collide with devastating force. If you're ready to feel every heartbeat, every dangerous choice, don't miss the next chapter. And if you haven't yet, subscribe now, because this story is only getting darker and you'll want to be here for every moment of it.
What if every glance felt like a sin and every touch a dangerous game? That's exactly where Cameron found herself, trapped between loyalty and temptation. The walls of the family home felt tighter with each passing day, not because of her husband Tom's love, but because of the heavy secret she was carrying. A secret that burned in her chest every time her eyes met Brady's across the dinner table. Tom remained the perfect husband, caring, attentive, almost too good to be true. He spoke about dreams of leaving the mafia, of starting a new life together, away from the blood and the darkness. Cameron nodded, smiled, pretended to share that dream. But deep inside, her heart was at war because the man she longed for at night was not the one holding her hand. Brady, on the other hand, grew bolder by the day. His eyes lingered too long, his words cut deeper. He played with fire in front of everyone, his smirk hinting at secrets only they shared. Cameron's pulse quickened every time he was near. It wasn't just desire anymore. It was danger, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your heart race at the same time. Every every family gathering turned into a battlefield of stolen touches and hidden glances. Cameron felt like she was being torn apart. One part of her drowning in guilt, the other craving the forbidden fire that only Brady could ignite. She knew it was wrong, but she couldn't stop. The more she tried to resist, the more she craved. And the worst part, Brady knew it. And then came the night that would change everything. A business dinner with a cartel turned into something far more dangerous. When a careless whisper nearly exposed them for the first time, Cameron realized that their secret wasn't just about passion anymore. It was about survival, because in their world, betrayal was never forgiven.
Whispers spread faster than bullets in the mafia world. That night, when Cameron overheard one of the men joking about how Brady's eyes lingered too long on his brother's wife, her blood ran cold. It was a careless comment, but in their world, nothing stayed hidden for long. Every glance, every slip of the tongue could be the spark that ignited disaster. Tom, oblivious as always, kept pouring drinks and laughing with his men. He trusted his brother. He trusted his wife. His heart was too pure for the world he was in. Cameron watched him with a pang of guilt so sharp it nearly broke her. How could she betray the only man who had ever truly loved her? And yet, even as she thought of that, her body remembered Brady's touch. Brady himself didn't seem worried. He leaned back in his chair, confident, powerful, untouchable. His ego thrived on the danger, almost as if he wanted people to suspect. To him, Cameron wasn't just a woman. She was proof that he could take anything from Tom, even the one thing Tom held sacred. And that pride was what made him reckless. That night, after everyone left, Cameron found herself trembling in the silence of her bedroom. Tom was asleep, his arm draped over her with love and trust, but all she could think of was the danger creeping closer. One slip, and it wouldn't just be her marriage that would be destroyed. It could cost lives. In the mafia, betrayal was paid in blood. And deep down, Cameron knew. Sooner or later, someone would uncover the truth. The only question was, who would speak first and how high the price would be?
The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint hum of the city outside. Cameron stood by the window, heart racing, when Brady entered the room without knocking. His presence filled the air like smoke. Dangerous, suffocating, impossible to ignore. She wanted to resist, to push him away, but the moment his hand slid around her waist, her body betrayed her resolve. Their lips collided with urgency, each kiss a rebellion against the life she had promised to another. It wasn't just desire, it was fire. The kind of fire that burned too hot to last, but too intoxicating to resist. Cameron felt alive in his arms, consumed by a passion she had never known before. For a fleeting moment, she imagined a world where it was only them. No mafia, no Tom, no guilt. Just love, raw and unchained. Her fingers clutched his shirt desperately, as if holding on to him could stop reality from crashing in. When the fever of the moment calmed, she whispered the words that had been tormenting her heart. "Let's run away. Tonight. Just you and me." Her voice shook, filled with both hope and terror. It was madness, she knew, but love, at least what she thought was love, made her believe it was possible. Maybe freedom lay beyond the walls of lies they had built. Maybe he could choose her above everything else. Brady froze. His eyes turned cold as steel. Then, with a bitter laugh, he pulled away. "Run away? With you?" His words sliced through her like a blade. You're out of your mind, Cameron. Do you really think I throw away my life for some stolen nights? His tone carried no warmth, no promise, only a harsh reminder of the truth. To him, she wasn't love. She was temptation, a dangerous indulgence, nothing more. The room spun as tears stung her eyes. She searched his face, desperate for any sign of tenderness, but there was none. In that instant, the fantasy shattered, leaving behind only pain. She realized she had given her heart to a man who would never truly hold it. He wanted her body, her weakness, her surrender, but not her soul. And in their world, that truth was deadlier than any secret. Yet even in her heartbreak, she couldn't let go, because desire, once awakened, was not so easily buried. Cameron stood there in silence, her world collapsing, knowing that the fire between them was destined to consume everything, no matter the cost.
The whispers had already begun. Smoky eyes lingered too long on Cameron and Brady, catching the invisible threads pulling them together. A glance here, a subtle touch there, it was enough to spark suspicion. Even the house staff exchanged knowing looks, their silence louder than any accusation. The truth was spreading like fire under dry wood, waiting for the right wind to explode. At family dinners, the air grew heavier. Cameron felt her skin burn under the gaze of those who suspected. Every smile from Brady seemed too sharp. Every excuse she gave sounded too thin. She tried to hide behind Tom's affection, laughing at his stories, holding his hand tighter. But her heart betrayed her, always beating faster when Brady entered the room. It was a cruel game, one she was losing by the day. Friends, relatives, even strangers, they all saw it. The stolen looks, the chemistry too raw to disguise, the tension that refused to fade. Some shook their heads in pity, others smirked in judgment, but none dared confront her. They knew who Tom was, and they feared what would happen if the truth reached his ears. Yet silence was dangerous, and secrets this big never stayed buried. Brady, on the other hand, wore his arrogance like armor. He moved through the world as if nothing could touch him, as if their affair was just another thrill in his reckless life. But his careless smirks, his deliberate provocations only made things worse. Cameron begged him with her eyes to be careful, but he enjoyed the danger too much. It was a thrill he couldn't resist. Tom, blinded by trust and love, remained the only one untouched by suspicion. He saw his wife's nervousness as exhaustion, her sudden silences as simple mood swings. His faith in her was unshakable, his devotion blinding him to the obvious. In his heart, betrayal was impossible. Cameron was his world, and he could never imagine her choosing anyone else. And that was what made it all the more tragic, because while the world already knew the truth, Tom was living in a fragile illusion. Each passing day tightened the noose around their secret, and Cameron felt the walls closing in. The question wasn't if he'd find out, it was when. And when he did, the destruction would be merciless.
What if the truth was always in front of you, but you were too blind to see it? Tom started noticing the smallest things, whispers between Cameron and Brady, glances that lasted a second too long, touches that didn't belong to family. At first, he brushed them off, convincing himself it was his imagination. But deep inside, something didn't feel right. Love can blind you, but suspicion has a way of burning holes through the heart. Family dinners became a battlefield of unspoken words. Tom watched how Komarov's eyes avoided his, yet lingered too much on his brother. Brady, with his arrogant smile, didn't even bother hiding the satisfaction of owning a secret. Everyone else seemed to sense it, from distant cousins to the men in the cartel. The air around them was
heavy, charged with betrayal waiting to erupt. Tom tried to ignore it, but it was everywhere. Kamaral felt the weight of every gaze, but her desire still overpowered her guilt. She convinced herself Tom would never see the truth, that his kindness made him blind. Brady, on the other hand, enjoyed the game. For him, every stolen moment in crowded rooms was proof of his power, not just over Kamaral, but over his own brother. The thrill was intoxicating, dangerous, impossible to control. Tom's heart broke in silence. He began to wonder if he was the fool everyone whispered about, the man too good, too generous, too trusting to realize he was being played. Nights became long hours of questions with no answers. Was Kamaral's smile still real? Were her hands holding his out of love, or just to hide the lies? Doubt crawled into his soul, and once it entered, it never left. The walls of deception were crumbling, and Tom was standing right in the middle of them. He didn't want to believe his wife, the woman he adored, could betray him with the person he trusted most. But every look, every silence, every broken laugh screamed the truth. And deep down, Tom knew there was no turning back. The discovery was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again.
The night was supposed to be ordinary, just another family gathering at the mansion. But fate has a way of choosing the darkest moment to reveal the cruelest truth. Tom entered the hallway, the heavy sound of his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. He wasn't looking for answers, but the silence guided him. And there, behind a half-closed door, he heard the sound that shattered his world. Cameral's voice, soft but trembling with desire, whispered Brady's name. Tom froze, his blood turning to ice. He pushed the door open, and what he saw cut deeper than any bullet ever could. His wife in Brady's arms, lips locked in betrayal, bodies pressed together in the heat of passion. For a moment, time stopped. The woman he loved and the brother he trusted, destroying him with one kiss. Kamaral gasped, pulling away, her face drained of all color. "Tom, it's not what it looks like," she stuttered, but the words fell like broken glass. Brady, bold as ever, didn't flinch. His smirk carried both pride and cruelty, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Tom's hands shook, rage and disbelief colliding inside him. He could barely breathe as the walls closed in around him. The truth was undeniable now. All the warnings, all the whispers, every stolen glance he ignored, it all made sense. Tom's heart pounded in his chest, but beneath the pain, fury was born. Betrayal had taken everything from him, his love, his trust, his dignity. And in that single moment, he vowed it would not end without consequences. Someone would have to pay the price. The room trembled with silence after Tom's voice broke. "You were both my family, and you destroyed me." Kamaral collapsed into tears, begging for forgiveness she knew she didn't deserve. Brady stood defiant, daring Tom to act. The love story that was never meant to be had now ignited a war, and this was only the beginning of the end.
The aftermath was a storm that no one could survive untouched. Tom left everything behind: family, wealth, and the shadow of the mafia that had once consumed his life. He moved to another country, seeking peace he knew he would never fully find. Nights were long, silent, haunted by the memory of the woman he loved and the betrayal that had broken him. Kamaral's face, etched in his mind, was a reminder that love and trust could be shattered in an instant. Brady, on the other hand, thrived. His power only grew, cementing his place as a feared and respected leader in the mafia. His arrogance remained intact,
a constant warning to those who dared to challenge him. Women were drawn to his dangerous charm, unaware of the havoc he left behind. Cameron had once been just another conquest, a spark